have fixed the hypothesis, research hypothesis. Now you are entering to a part where you have to analyze your hypothesis. Means you have to go for a methodological part, then analysis, and finally come to conclusion. And this whole planning you can do under a topic called research design. Every research has a design. Means remember, there are different types of research. Say for example social science research, or you can say the no, the literature, humanities research, literature, these are language subjects are there, and also scientific research are there. Within the scientific research you can find biological research, mathematical science, statistical science, computational science. So different types of research are there, and there we need to follow depending on the type of areas, discipline, a particular research design. So here research design is most crucial, because if you are not following a research design, you may end up with a mess. Means you are going to have some kind of a result which you are not, you won't get any time to correct. So before going to research design, let me talk about different features of a research design. This is irrespective of the discipline or area. We need to follow some criteria or features that the research design must have, without which our research may not be acceptable to the scientific world. So let me talk about those features of the research design. First one is the objectivity. You know that one of the most priority area of research design where it focuses is the objectivity. A research design should have very clear cut objectives, achievable objectives, executable objectives. Means what? Once you fix what to do, what to do means the objectives should not be a kind of a task which cannot be achieved by the researcher. Now if you think of that, you will work from the laboratory. If the laboratory has limited research facilities, but you are trying to have some data which are not possible for you to collect beyond your instrumentational capacity, then definitely that research objectivity you are not going to be achieved. That is why objectivity of the research depending on the laboratory, first point. Second point is objectivity of the research depending on the need. Suppose at a particular time there is a problem in the society, and you are going to solve the problem through a research. So that objectivity should be very clear. Means you are going to solve a problem which is in the society. So this way the objectivity of the research should be very clear. This is the first point. One most important point you need to remember, that when you have clear objectives, you have the authentic data. Means you can gather, collect, or you can hand over to the society the authentic outcomes from the authentic data. So objectivity is one of the most priority part of the research design. While framing the research design, the first part is after hypothesis to fix the objectives. As I told you in the beginning, that objectives should be such a kind of instrument that once you address one objectives, what are the methods, what are the outcomes, deliverables for the respective of the objectives should be very clear. So you have to be very careful, or you can say very constructive while designing the objectives. And second feature of research design is the reliability. You know that while doing any research, the reliability is a very important part, because if your data that you have collected are not reliable, then your outcomes are not reliable. Now question is how to make your research reliable. There are a number of methods. Statistical methods that will put you that will give your data reliability. You know that the word reliability is actually used in a very simple term as a trustworthiness. Trustworthiness means that whenever you come with an outcome, you will pass it to the society, pass it to the scientific world, pass it to the governments. So how they trust you that your research is one of the need of the society. Say for example, during the corona period, the people they have come up with different types of alternatives of medicines, but you know that only few of the medicines have been accepted, vaccines have been accepted. Why? Because these vaccines have convinced the researchers, they have convinced the policymakers or the society that these are actually working against the coronavirus. So that trustworthiness is one of the most important part in the research design. And there are a number of methods, as I told you, statistical method. Because many times what happens, whenever you work in your place, say for in India, for a particular invention or a particular, say for example, medicines, you are working in India, and same medicine, another person is working in America. Now, your laboratory facilities are different, your climate is different, and your subjects where you are doing experiments, they are different. So you may get two different results. That is, from India, whatever results you're getting, you cannot prove the same results in America, because their laboratories are different, their facilities are different, their temperatures are different, physiology little bit different depending on the temperature. So what to do? So we are putting some conditions. Statistically, we are putting that 95% confidence level. So for example, in my experiment, if I'm doing an experiment in India, I'm putting at level that my experiment, it follows a 95% confidence level of the total analysis data. You will understand later on what is called 95% confidence level, or you can say the critical value of the experiment, 5% level. Likewise, any person, if he is working with 1% probability, or 1% 99% confidence level, or 1% critical value 1%, the same experiment, if another scientist is trying to re-establish, he has to follow the same condition, that is 99% confidence level, or that is one critical value 1%. So these are the conditions we are putting to our experiments, because we are trying to stick to the reliability of the work that we are doing. Otherwise, my experiment, if the question comes, what is the chance that your experiment outcome will fail? Then I will say that yes, there is a 5% chance if I go with 95% confidence level. So this way, in your research design, you have to put the conditions so that your data, reliability of data, can be accepted everywhere. Now the second part is validity. Validity means what? If you have done a kind of a research today, tomorrow another scientist should be able to repeat the same experiment in his laboratory. Means it should have some kind of self consistency, and there are a lot of efforts that a researcher has to put to keep his or her data self consistent. One example I'm telling you: suppose you have developed a method of quantifying proteins in samples. Now, in your new method of quantifying proteins in samples, if there is no consistency, that method will be rejected by the scientific world, or it will not get any established way of the recognition for establishing the protein estimation. So what happens? You need to have some consistent data regarding the experiment you have done. Means if you have come out that a particular method can estimate the protein around 99% or 95% correctly, you have to show that by a number of experiments that your protein, that particular expected outcome, that estimation is 99%. It may be out of 100, 95% you may get the correct results. But you need to show. That is the validity of your experiment. So, like reliability, validity also give a kind of a strength to the reliability of the data or your findings. So, this is a third part in your research design, and there are a number of different statistical methods people are using for making data validated. And you know that many times what we do, we project some models through research, and we try to establish what would happen if the model goes beyond a particular level. Means if you develop a model, a prediction system from your research up to a particular level, the model will predict correctly. But after that, the model will fail. Means that beyond that particular level, the model will not be able to give you a correct data. Means that your validation, if anybody wants to see the validation of data, he will fail beyond that particular limit. So the validation is a part you must include in your research design. And another most important part of research design is the universality. So universality, obviously your outcome must have some universal acceptance. Means whatever you have found at the end of the research should be acceptable, may not by all of the section of the people or the particular discipline, but some people must accept your research. So a universal acceptance across the political boundary, across the geographical boundary, so it should have. Otherwise, if it is too much regional, it will lose the significance. So whenever you are working, you may start your problem with some regional questions, and your hypothesis may also start with a regional basis. But when you are proceeding that addressing of the problems, there might be similar problems across the world. So you need to understand how that regional problem will address some other problems where across the world. So accordingly, you have to proceed and you need to present your outcomes. So the universality is one of the criteria that will give you a strength to your research design. The second point is that whenever you are approaching to a kind of a research part, the method, the particular way of working, starting from the question, the hypothesis setting, and the method selection, analysis, validations, this should have also acceptability by everyone in the world. Means your method should be acceptable. You know, there are a lot of human ethics problem, there are ethical problems, there are a lot of restricted experiments. You cannot do any experiment which is not acceptable by the human world, human civilizations. So that is why the universality means not only the data you have shared or outcome you are sharing with the rest of the world, it also assign a kind of a concept that whatever you are doing in your research to get an outcome should have some universal background. Means a universal kind of acceptability. And another point that is most important point is neutrality. When I say that neutrality, it means unbiasedness. In that case, when we talk about unbiasedness in the research, that the facility of the laboratory, you can say, or you can say the facilities you have to collect some data. I used to give a very good example to explain the neutrality. That is that, say for example, you have one friend in a particular area. Then you have given a task to collect some data from the 10 villages from a particular area where your that friend resides. Now what we will do generally, we will go to the village, we'll stay there. So since my friend is there, I will stay in my friend's village. So I may not visit all the 10 villages. But since my friend is staying in one of them, I will go to that particular village and collect my data in and around the village where my friend resides. So this is a kind of a biasness while collecting data. So what we need to do, we have to develop a method which is unbiased, random, and this randomness will give a, all the features that I have discussed, that reliability, that kind of validity. So this kind of strength will give to the your research. So your design must include how we are going to collect the data with an unbiased methodological process. And there are number of designs that you can follow to collect the samples. Say for example, if you go for interviews, what kind of different people you are going to interview, what is the number of people you are going to interview. If you are going to collection of data, how you are collecting the populations, selecting the populations for data collections. There are a number of methods we'll discuss later on, but that is why whenever you are designing that particular research, designing the research methodology, you need to incorporate those methodology which are most appropriate to you with random data collections. So this will give you the neutrality to some extent, not 100%, but still we cannot say, but we can have neutrality in our research. And another point is that accuracy. Accuracy is difficult because whenever you work on a big population, say for example, you want to work on the diabetes now, whether the Indian population, male population is diabetic or not, but you know that is billions people in India. So in that case, how to collect the data from each and every male population in India, it is very difficult. Even you cannot finish it in one state of India. So what we'll do, we'll select some samples from different states, and these samples will be the representative of the diabetic population, male diabetic population in India. So while selecting these populations, we should be very careful so that this population should not be less, the number should not be so less that our research will not represent the whole Indian population. So the population size should have sufficient figure so that we can say this is actually the representative populations. So in statistical method, there are number of tests are there. How can you reach the accuracy by deciding the sample size? Again, I'm telling you, when we are talking about research design, we are mostly talking about the methods, because design means that how you will start the work. Finishing is most of the common part, because interpretation, discussion, these are the some of the very common, but most important part is the methodology. And these methodologies are giving you the reliability, neutrality, and now what I'm discussing about the accuracy. So more precisely you choose the sampling method, your data will be more accurate. And that is why your research design must include with a justification a particular method of sampling. And now coming to feasibility. So as you know, just let me explain you that in university also people are doing research, in institutes also people are doing research, and also some NGOs, they are also doing research. Now all these different institutes or these foundations, they are doing research at their own level or with the help of the government, and their laboratories have different facilities. Their scientists have different experts. So depending on the availability of the experts, depending on the availability of the research facility, they are doing their research and giving the outcomes. Now the question is that if I take a research which my institution, my laboratory, my expertise cannot support, I should not go for that. So although I have a lot of ideas in my mind, I can say that how the extraterrestrial can be reported, can visualized in a planet beyond the solar system. I may have idea, but if my laboratory cannot support that facility, I can't go for that. So many a times when we design the research, we have to see the feasibility of the facilities in our laboratory, feasibility of the fundings given by the government, feasibility of the expertise that my laboratory or my collaborators have. So these feasibilities will help you, because if you are taking a part which is not able to guided or monitored by the good expert, or monitored or analyzed by the appropriate matching instrument, your research will suffer. So that is why feasibility is one of the important part which should be included, which you must include in your research design. And finally, flexibility. You know that initially what happens, it is not a kind of a common practice, flexibility, but still we should keep some flexibility in our research. So many times what happens, our researchers, they start with a hypothesis, but in the middle of the research they find that their hypothesis, if they design this way, they have decided a hypothesis which is very correct, but while looking for the particular outcome, they found that yes, this outcome they were initially designed this way, but now if we go with another way, they will achieve the hypothesis better. So the flexibility will give you to get more, that acceptable and reliable outcomes, because you obviously your research design that you have initially set is correct, but only when you will feel that if you add three more methods, if you go with another directions, if you add another some of the one or two objectives that will make your research more clearer, if it is feasible within your executable level, you can add it to your already prepared research design. So that is why there should be some kind of flexibility in your research design. So my dear students, these are the basic features that any research design must have.